Welcome, everyone. So glad to have you for our Lunch and Learn on supply side solutions, where we're going to discuss how modular and manufactured housing can help with Virginia's housing goals. So, really excited and feel very fortunate to welcome Randy Grumbine, who's the executive director of the Virginia Manufactured and Modular Housing Association, also known as VAMMHA. And we're going to learn how innovations in this industry can help our region and the Commonwealth with both homeownership and rental housing targets. VAMMHA represents the factory built housing industry in Virginia and is a strong voice for affordable housing opportunities and choices for Virginia's families. Randy and his team recognize that these housing opportunities are vital to the Commonwealth's continued economic success. So we're really lucky to have Randy here. He has a wealth of experience about how to advance a supply side solution here in Virginia. And judging from the excellent questions that you all posed when you registered, there's a lot of information that we can cover on the topic. So we're really thrilled that Randy has agreed to be with us for the entire hour together because he is the guy and has a lot of knowledge to share with us. This topic for me is one possible solution that garners so much interest from advocates, local governments, and elected officials, but we haven't quite figured it out, or maybe we don't even completely understand what's standing in our way at this point. So, from our discussion today, we hope you learn about policy development, construction innovation, and how we can overcome barriers. So, I know we'll have a great conversation with Randy. Again, if you're just joining us, please feel free to put your any questions for Randy in the chat. We'll get to those at the end of his presentation. We are recording this session, so you'll be able to share this with your colleagues or rewatch this if you want. And I would like to welcome Randy Grumbine. So thank you so much, Randy, for joining us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jill. And first, I want to thank the Alliance for having me in and asking me to be a part of this and to address this topic. Um, Jill and Hannah shared with me the robust list of questions that you posed, and I was impressed. It exemplifies your base knowledge of the factory built housing industry, and also a curiosity that I hope that is infectious and it spreads as we go through this today. We have a lot to cover, so I'm just going to jump right in. And I'd like to start by asking you to think about three products. I want you to focus on the first image that comes in mind when I mention these products. So the first is a phone. The second is a computer. And the third is an F-150 Ford truck. Now I'll throw out a fourth image for you to focus on, and that's a manufactured home. So I'm sure you already know where I'm going with this, but I grew up in a home with a rotary phone. In fact, not only did we have a rotary phone, but we also had a party line. And if you don't know what a party line is, that's a good thing, but I can just tell you it wasn't a party. So party was probably not the best term that they used for that. And here's a computer. This computer on the left is before even floppy disks came about. And the technology advancements we've seen there. And I'm curious how many of you thought of the Ford 150 truck on the left as your first image versus the new Ford electric 150 on the right. That truck there can actually even power your house in the event that you have a power loss. So the technological changes that's happened since 1976 in these three products is remarkable. Manufactured housing, this is what most of the general public thinks of when they hear that term, manufactured home, trailer, mobile home. This is the image that comes to mind. But this is what we did in 76. We don't get very much credit for what we're doing today. So this is more typical of what the homes that we're placing on the ground today. So this is where our conversation is going to focus about why that is, what we can do to try and move the needle, and some of the challenges that we face. So 76 is significant because prior to 1976, there was a patchwork of codes out there. So there was no consistency in the construction code of factory built homes. And so a manufacturer, if they were building in our plant in Southwest Virginia, they'd have to get in touch with each locality where that home was going to be placed, and the home construction could be different. So taking homes across state lines, and even within states there was a different patchwork. Some localities would adopt one code, some would not adopt a code at all, and so it was just this hodgepodge that made it really difficult for the industry to accommodate the appeal of the product. So Congress recognized this, and they passed a law in 74 that basically put HUD in control of establishing a building code, a federal building code for manufactured housing. And so out of that, we have what we call the HUD code. And having the standardized national code gave the factories the ability to improve their processes, standardize their supply chain, and all of which help them reduce their cost and deliver a more consistent product. So HUD still is responsible for regulating the industry today. And that HUD code over the years has been updated. It updates pretty regularly. I will say it's not as regular as the Virginia residential code. That you can set your clock to is every 3 years. As soon as we finish one cycle, we begin working on the next cycle. So that adoption is somewhat different than HUD code. The HUD code, um, you can blame it on government bureaucracy. It does take longer to update. They are a little bit slower to innovate, but when they do, they make wholesale changes. So we just saw that take place earlier this year, where they dumped about almost 90 different changes to the HUD code, which is allowing us to do some really significant innovation, and some of which we'll talk about as we go through this. So so now with that federal code, our builder in Southwest Virginia and Rocky Mount, they can build homes and ship those homes to Florida or to Maine, and it's all built to the exact same federal code. There are three nuanced differences based on where the home is going to be placed, and those three characteristics are wind zone. So think hurricanes. So it's mostly coastal regions, the entire state of Florida. We do have a strip in Eastern Virginia, along Virginia Beach and the Eastern Shore, that is a higher wind zone. So they call that wind zone 2. And there are three wind zones: 1, 2, and 3. Then there's thermal zone. So it is what you would think, the amount of insulation, the thermal requirements for a home, and it gets more stringent as you move from the south to the north. And the third requirement is snow load. So that homes have to, again, as they move further north, address the issues of the weight of heavy snow on the roof. So that transmits through the roof joists, down the sidewalls, and into the foundation. So that has to be taken into consideration in how that home is constructed. Otherwise, the homes need to meet the minimum standards that HUD provides. So just like the Virginia Residential Code, this HUD code does update regularly, as I mentioned, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. I do want to cover a little bit on nomenclature. There's so many different terms thrown around out there, and really, at the end of the day, we're talking about homes that are built in a factory and then shipped to site. So when they're built in a factory, they have to be built to a code. They're built, they're inspected, sometimes during the process, sometimes at the end, sometimes both, and then they're shipped to an ultimate destination. And there are really three different codes that we see these homes built to. So the manufactured HUD code, as I just mentioned, then we have the industrialized building code, which is more commonly known as modular. And in Virginia, we do both on-frame and off-frame modulars. Those are basically built to the Virginia residential code. So wherever that home is going to be placed, that home has to be built to that site built code. And then third, which we don't really use much, and I won't really discuss a whole lot today, is the RV code, which you'll see on some of the tiny homes and park models are built to. Basically, it's the RV code, which is the same as you would build a camper. So there's a lot of terms here. And again, I won't go through them all, but if you have a burning desire to know more about some of the nuanced differences, I'll give my contact information at the end, and I do not mind at all if you reach out and we'll address those. Because at the end of this presentation, you will be more informed than 99.99% of the general public out there, that you'll know the difference between a manufactured home and a modular home, and then some of these other homes that come along as well. So the one big takeaway that I want you to have today is that it's difficult sometimes to tell the difference between manufactured and modular. If you're on the street, how do you know which one it is? And we'll discuss that briefly as well as we go forward. With the modulars, they again are built to the residential code, the same as you would follow if you were building a site code, and manufactured, that is built to the federal code, which we call the HUD code. And so it's a two different codes. I often get asked, which code is better? And my question to answer that is, what do you mean by better? What is the criteria you're using to describe better? And they're different. So, for example, the HUD code is prescriptive. It doesn't necessarily tell you how to build the home, but it tells you how the home must perform. So, going back to the thermal zones, for example. In Virginia, we're in the most stringent thermal zones called thermal zone 3. So based on that, the code tells us here in Virginia what temperature we must maintain inside the home. It doesn't tell us how much insulation needs to be in the floor, how much has to be in the sidewalls, how much has to be in the ceiling. They let the engineers that design the home come up with their best practice to provide that, to maintain that temperature that is established by HUD. So that's a little bit different than the Virginia Residential Code, which is more of a blueprint on how to build a house. So that's a nuanced difference that I want you to understand between the two. I'm going to fly through some images just so you have a feel for what we're capable of doing. And then, we'll move on to a little bit more detail. But so let's first look at, I want to just throw this image up here again, manufactured or modular. The interesting thing is we have factories that focus just on manufactured. We have some factories that focus just on modular. And then we have some that are a hybrid that build both. So what we see happening today and every day is the zoning for manufactured homes is limited in Virginia. We're limited to agricultural zones by right, And then beyond that, only as the local jurisdiction allows. So the first question that we ask a consumer is, what is the zoning of your land? So if it's determined that by right you cannot place a manufactured home, the retailers say, well, we'll just build it as a modular unit then. So that's the process that takes place. In general, the modular is probably going to be $15,000 to $20,000 more to be built to that modular code. And there's a few significant reasons for that, which we probably won't get into today, but just know that that would push the price up somewhere in the $15,000 to $20,000 price range. So getting into some of the modular product that we do, modular is typically multiple boxes that are assembled put together and built in a factory, shipped to site, and then finished in the field. So this image here, this Cape Cod, was probably 4 boxes. And then here you see one at the shore on piers. That is 4 boxes there. You can see them being put together. And that would be more typical of a finished product of something like that on stilts. Tiny homes, I get asked about tiny homes, and so they're often built in the factory because it's more affordable to build in a controlled environment and ship it to site. So the unique thing about tiny homes is what code is it built to? Again, you have those 3 different codes. So if you're a local official, that would be my first question is what code are you intending to build this home to? And then what does your zoning say regarding the placement of those? Can you place a manufactured home, tiny home, or accessory dwelling unit? Or does it have to be built to the Virginia residential code? Or can it be built to the RV code? Most jurisdictions do not allow homes built to the RV code as a permanent structure. And that really wasn't their intent. You'll see here some ADUs. And again, the line is very blurry between what is a tiny home and what is an ADU. So park models, these are what are built to that RV code. They allow some things that you can't do in the typical residential code or the manufactured home code. I will tell you that with the last adoption of the Virginia residential code, they did adopt some language regarding construction of tiny homes. And they basically said, local jurisdictions, if you're going to approve placement of tiny homes, and you need a code to build them to, this is the code that they should follow as a bare minimum. So there's an appendix Q in the Virginia residential code that allows you to build this kind of home to the Virginia residential code. The differences, the nuanced differences, for example, loft space, which gives you, 32-inch clearance in your loft and a stairwell that wouldn't pass the normal code, and narrow hallways which wouldn't pass as well. So there's some nuanced difference that allows that to be constructed. So it's up to the local jurisdictions to say, yes, we want to allow this, or no, we do not. So be happy to take questions on that at the end. Here's another example of a park model, tiny or accessory dwelling unit. So today's manufactured homes, I started off by addressing the stigma that we live with every day. And the questions are typical of how do these homes stand up over time? And I would just address the issue, the big elephant in the room for me being in this industry for the number of years I have, is first admitting that the reason that we have the stigma that we do is because the homes that we built in the 60s and 70s, even through the end of the century, weren't built very well. They did not hold up. You couldn't, if you had a broken window, you couldn't go to Lowe's and buy a replacement window. You had to go to a manufactured home part supply place and find a window to put in there. Or if your tub, you had a plastic tub and it cracked, it would do significant damage. The floors were used, there was particle board floors and they disintegrated. So we still live with the stigma of the homes that we built in the last century. And even in the 80s and 90s, even though the homes were much better, I still say that we were more focused on affordability than we were focused on durability. And that has changed now. We still offer an affordable product just by the nature of how we build. Um, we we have it down to a science. We have supply trucks arriving every day with shingles, with two by fours, with OSB board. Same shipments that are rolling into Lowe's or Home Depot, we have rolling into our factory. And you can imagine some of the factories are able to produce 8 floors a day. So if it's multi-sections, that's as many as 4 houses a day. So it's not that 4 houses start and finish on the same day. It's kind of like an auto assembly plant. They may roll one off a minute. It doesn't take a minute to build a car, but that's how many are rolling off the line a day, is as many as one a minute for the auto dealers. But it takes maybe 3 days for it to go through the whole process. So for us, it could be anywhere from 8 days to 12 days from the time it first goes online till the time it goes through all the different stages and rolls offline. But through those timed advancements, that we're able to produce a decent number of homes, sometimes as many as 20 houses a week at a factory. Um, and it depends on the homes that they're building too. Are they smaller? How are the finishes, etc., to determine what kind of volume that they're able to get out. So I had a thought and I've lost that thought. So maybe it'll come back to me here in a second. Um, the with the homes being built in a factory, we don't buy, and so I do have my thought back, just so you know. It does take a minute sometimes. The they don't order, if they have to have some 6 foot sections of 2 by 4s, they don't buy 8 foot long sections and cut 2 foot off and throw it away. They'll order a certain number of quantity of 6 foot section boards and have them in their own stack. So at the end of the day, there's very little waste in this process. And so waste is money. And I'm told that the amount of waste from the construction of one home will fill two 55-gallon drums, just to give you a perspective on how dialed in that purchasing, staging of materials, and rolling the homes through the process, how they don't have trash cans staged throughout the process because they just don't need to use them. They have figured that out. So that efficiency helps us to drive the cost down, and to be able to do some things that is just difficult for site builders to do. Now, also with the construction process, we are going to be boxy. I mean, it is a box. It's we're limited by what we can get on the highway. And generally, our boxes are about 16 foot wide. So if you've ever tried to pass one on the highway, you know how wide they are. A typical tractor trailer is 9 feet or less. So 16 foot is 7 feet wider than that typical trailer, just to give you an idea. Um, I also like to joke and say that our homes are all hurricane tested. If you've been stuck behind one on 95 or 81 or 64, they move along pretty quick. They do the speed limit and sometimes five over. And so they're moving along at 70 miles an hour. And when you think about that, here's a house going down the road at 70 miles an hour. And when it gets to site, it has very little, if any, damage. We may lose a couple shingles. We may have a piece of vinyl siding fall off, but that isn't the norm. Especially the vinyl siding. I rarely see that happen. So again, that's built into the process. There's some give and take in the home so that those wall boards arrive in a good condition. It's not uncommon to have some stress cracks, especially around your doors and windows. And as those sections are put together, those are addressed and finished out as well. So let's look at a few more images here. This you'll see, you know, the industry has evolved that the consumer has demanded finished sheetrock uh, with flat ceilings and crown molding, just like you would see in a typical residential home. Now, that's not to say we don't offer the older original homes, which were, it was also wallboard, but it was a vinyl coated wallboard. And the way that the two came together, you had what was called a batten strip that kind of hid the seam. Um, that made it difficult for the consumer over time to change that out. They were really limited on what do I do if I, want to change the pattern. It wasn't really conducive to painting. So it left an unfavorable taste in many of the consumers' minds. This gives them options. They can paint, they can patch holes just like you could in any other home. And what we really tried to do as an industry is get to the point where, yes, the consumer can go to Lowe's and get a replacement outlet for their wall, or for a light switch or a light fixture. Any of those things are now commonly resourced and not where you have to go to a special supply shop. So let's see some more images. You'll see a lot of open floor plans. We don't have typically very many hallways because hallways eat up space. They're not efficient in utilization of square footage, so very few hallways. Of course, kitchens are important. You'll see that they have all the latest appliances, Energy Star rated appliances, solid countertops, and of course, our bathrooms, um, ceramic sinks. We've gotten away from plastic. That's not to say that there aren't some entry-level homes out there that still may have some more affordable finishing. But in general, you're going to see porcelain throughout, and tile showers, and the large soaker tubs if that's what's desired. Sometimes I think we put too much square footage in the master baths, but to each his own on that. And then here's the bedroom. So you see some lighting here at the top, some that just makes the space open up. We can do 9 foot flat ceilings, 8 foot. Um, we are limited on, when we do get over height, we do have issues with traveling the highways with bridge overpasses. So we have to be permitted through DMV to make sure that we're not going to be hitting any bridge overpasses. So they'll help route us to the site to address all that issues. Um, so, if you have questions, if you haven't, when we're in person, I usually like to ask, when was the last time you were in a manufactured home? Have you been in one in the last 5 years, 10 years, this decade, this century? And if you have, then you kind of understand where the industry is today. If you haven't, then you probably are still looking at the homes that were built back last century. And so I would say the best thing you can do to educate yourself is to visit a retail center where they have multiple homes and walk through some of the homes. And that will help you get that level of comfort of, how long does this home last today versus a site built home. And so my answer to you today is it has the same life expectancy today as a site built home. We're using the same materials, it's just built to a different code. So I do have a short video since I can't show you a home today. We'll walk you through this home. This is a video provided by Clayton Homes. Clayton has the largest market share in Virginia. They probably have about 85% market share in Virginia. And the reason that I share this video with you is because Clayton made the commitment to build all their homes to the U.S. Department of Energy net zero energy standards effective July of 2024. So everything that came in Virginia after July of 2024 was built to these net zero energy standards. And so this video does a better job of explaining it than I will, and I will touch on a few features afterwards. So.
Today, we're excited to take you on a tour of this Clayton e-built home. Built to the U.S. Department of Energy's high energy efficiency standards, e-built homes can save you between 40 and 50% on your annual utility bills compared to a traditional manufactured home. Let's tour this Clayton e-built home and see what makes it so energy efficient. Let's start with probably one of the home's most innovative features. It's built to accommodate a renewable solar energy system to power the home. You can see inside the panel box where it's already configured and labeled for an alternative power source. Much of what makes this home so energy efficient is located in the Clayton-built utility closet. First, we have this Rheem hybrid heat pump water heater. It's a hybrid because it has both heat pump technology and an electric auxiliary heating element. Here's an amazing stat. This hybrid water heater uses less energy in 1 year than a 100-watt incandescent light bulb. The interactive control panel and Rheem app allow you to adjust your water temperature and switch to high demand mode if desired. You can program your water temperature to be hotter or cooler according to your daily schedule, and even turn down your water heater's temperature via the app if you're away on vacation. One thing that's different from a traditional water heater is this filter that's cleaned every 3 months. Don't worry if you forget to clean it. The unit has a clean filter alert to remind you. E-built homes powered by electric are heated and cooled by this Smart Comfort by Carrier high-efficiency HVAC heat pump. Each home-specific heat pump model is chosen for the home's size, construction, and climate where the home is located. Heat pumps provide both heating and cooling by moving heat into your home during cold weather, then reversing the process to move heat and humidity outside your home during warmer weather. This process uses half as much energy on average as other electric home heating and cooling systems. Most homes with heat pumps will have an internal air handler and exterior condensing unit. Some homes may have all heat pump equipment located outside. Regardless of location, both types work the same to efficiently heat and cool your home. Homes powered by gas are heated and cooled by a high-efficiency Smart Comfort by Carrier gas furnace. All homes have an Ecobee smart thermostat. In homes with electric heat pumps, the Ecobee unit allows you to switch between heat pump and auxiliary heat modes. Each Clayton e-built home comes with an Energy Star certified dishwasher and refrigerator that delivers energy efficiency with the style and performance homeowners expect of their appliances. In the bathrooms, you'll find Pfister bathroom faucets, shower heads, and Energy Star certified bathroom fans. All e-built homes feature argon gas low E windows, insulated doors, LED lighting, and carpet products that meet Carpet and Rug Institute Green Label Plus standards. In a typical residence, heating and cooling escaping through leaky windows, doors, and walls accounts for 25 to 40% of energy consumption. This Clayton e-built home is different. It features a sealed duct system which prevents drafts, moisture, and unwanted noise. All windows, register vents, plumbing, and electrical penetrations, even the recessed lighting, are tightly sealed. Together, these features significantly contribute to the home's energy efficiency. This home also features a whole house ventilation system that circulates fresh air indoors. We hope you've enjoyed today's tour of this Clayton e-built home, the next evolution in home building and energy efficiency.
Okay, so you can see why I chose that video, because he does a much better job of explaining and giving you a quick tour of today's home that I just can't do from a PowerPoint slide. But I do want to focus on a few things that he said. So the low E windows, the Energy Star certified appliances, and in Virginia, all your sidewalls are going to be 6-inch sidewalls with R22 insulation. The nice thing about Clayton taking the lead here is, of course, competition. I always applaud competition. The other manufacturers have followed suit, and they're doing all their homes not to quite to the net zero, but they're doing to the Energy Star certification. Little uncertain what's going to happen with the effects of the One Big Beautiful Bill, because the credits from the Department of Energy are going to go away next year. So that could change things. And I don't think that we're going to roll back, but we may give the consumer some choice, particularly when it comes to that REAM programmable hybrid water heater. It's expensive. I don't know if any of you are familiar with them. They're minimum of $2,500, some as much as $4,000 to put that in the home. So he did say that the energy usage is equivalent of 100-watt incandescent light bulb for the whole year. So that is a huge savings over a traditional water heater, but it will take you, 10 years probably to get your return on that money based on the reduced savings. So that's up to the consumer to decide, well, what direction they want to go. That's where I'm assuming they will make that decision. So hopefully that helps you understand what's going into these homes today. There are some other things that, just to confuse you, the industry came out with a term called cross mods a few years ago, and this is a manufactured home. It has mod in the name, which I think was a poor choice, but it's a manufactured home that has a high level of minimum standards. And this was one that we placed on this valuable piece of property a couple years ago. And so some of the requirements are, it has to have a high-pitched roof, it has to have an attached garage or carport, it needs to be set low to the ground, have finished sheetrock throughout, real wood cabinets. So it's what you would expect in a site-built home. The nuance of this is Freddie and Fannie both have a program for financing that aligns with traditional mortgages. So, and one of the challenges is in the resale, that new consumer can also assume those 30-year benefits of an FHA or Freddie or Fannie mortgage. They can't be appraised with other more standard manufactured homes. They must be appraised with either other like cross mods or with site-built homes. So this home looks to be about 1,500 square feet. So an appraiser would have to find either equivalent cross mods in the area or equivalent site-built home that is 1,500 square feet, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, just for appraisal purposes. So you'll see some adoption of that. I do want to point out that we have a project ongoing right now in the city of Petersburg that is utilizing this cross-mod product. And they're doing infill on 46 vacant lots across the city of Petersburg. So I actually have a ribbon cutting tomorrow for the first resident to move into their home. So good progress there. And we've done a project in Danville with this product as well, where Danville had some lots that were vacant that they gifted, and we provided housing on that. And so those homes are all lived in today. So there's the idea of this was to give something that's more residential looking with the high pitched roof and set low to the ground. Garages is they're deciding whether or not longer term they want to have garages as part of the requirement, because some neighborhoods just don't have garages. So why are they forcing something that may not be needed? So more to come on that. I want to just briefly touch on multifamily. I told you that HUD code is regularly updated. So now with the HUD code most recent updates, we can do up to quadplexes of manufactured homes. So try and wrap your brain around that a second, especially if you are in a planning office and you are issuing building permits on manufactured homes, and somebody comes in and wants to do a quadplex. You may not allow manufactured homes, you may not allow duplexes, quadplexes. So there are definitely some zoning hurdles that we're going to have to educate and help people get up to speed with. But it does help us keep the homes affordable. This is a 2 bedroom on the left and a 2 bedroom on the right. So you have a firewall right down the middle right here, and that has to extend all the way to the ground and all the way through the roof. So that's that. Again, this is built to the manufactured housing code, not the Virginia residential code. Here's another example where the units are side by side. And now they are allowing duplexes of single section manufactured homes. So this one we took to the mall last year for HUD's Innovation Housing Showcase. And so you had a 2 bedroom, 1 bath on the left and a 1 bedroom, 1 bath on the right. So 2 units for under $120,000. So basically $60,000 a unit here. Now that has a huge asterisk next to it. That's no land, no infrastructure, no setup. That's just the house. So don't get too excited about 120 without factoring in some of those other costs. This is another example and the floor plan of that. And this is what the inside looked on that home. So not huge, but I can tell you, as a single man, I could live in this space. 800 square feet is enough space for me personally. And the other one was more like, was a little bit bigger. So we do some multifamily. This is modular only though. This is not manufactured. And there's some challenges with multifamily modular construction. This is a project that was done in Fishersville, outside of Waynesboro. This is a senior living center. All those are boxes that were built in a factory in Virginia and shipped to the site, crane set. So a really great project. So I know there was some questions about utilizing modular for multifamily. The challenge is the factories, they to do a project like that, they have to disrupt their line. To build 100, 110 boxes like that, they have to put everything else on hold. And those projects, once they're done, they're done. So they have to balance feeding that line with the regular builders who are coming with I need 4 houses and, so, and somebody who relies strictly on those big projects, what do they do in between? So that's the challenges that the factories are always weighing. Do we want to be both, or do we want to be one or the other? So if you want more information on that, I would encourage you to reach out to me and we can discuss. I will like to give you just a little bit of information so that you're properly fueled with some data. You can see here on the screen in 2021, 88% of homes constructed under 200,000 were manufactured, 97% under 150,000. Uh, and then the median price for our homes last year was 149,000 or 159,300. Again, that has that big asterisk next to it. No land, no delivery and setup, and no improvements. Well, um, driveway, electric, septic if needed, or tap fees. So that would have to be added on to that to get to a comparable price of a site built. The site built's going to have all that in it, the 419. Typically, we're going to be 70% the site built if it's manufactured, and probably 85% if it's modular, just kind of rough numbers. I often get asked, these homes, they depreciate over time. And that has really been proven untrue. This was a study done by FHFA, and you can see the track record going all the way back to 2000, that the pricing of manufactured homes really tracks right along with site-built homes. The manufactured is yellow, blue is the site-built. Of course, we all suffered from the housing debacle in 2008, but it took us a little bit longer to come out of that. But we are tracking right along with site-built homes. There's been significant inflation, came out of COVID. It dissipated a little bit. Uh, I think there's some fat in our pricing today. You can't quote me on this, but a recession might not be a bad thing. It helps knock the price down and get people back in line. So, but because I still have a little bit of sticker shock when I go into our homes today. What I see today versus what I saw 5 years ago. So. We do land development. We have members that can do the greenfield development, providing roads and all the infrastructure. They don't have to put the homes in. That's up to you and the locality, the jurisdiction. Um, we we're actually working through Virginia Housing and some of the planning district commissions with some of the recent economic development announcements in South Side. So, you take South Boston, which is a small town. They need 860 new jobs with the Hitachi electric plant that's expanding, doubling in size, and they don't have 864 people on the bench. So we're looking at ways to bring in housing quickly that meets those needs. So that's what we have the capability of doing. We'd really like to put something up on a pedestal that we can show local government that we have them across the country. We just haven't had a good solid project here in Virginia that of like a subdivision fee simple, not a land lease, but a fee simple situation where the consumer owns the land and the house. So with that, Jill, I will turn it to you to hit me with some questions that came in and anything that I missed as I was going through.
That's amazing. Thank you, Randy, so much. I learned a lot. There is a lot to learn, and I think you're right about just the education piece as we go out in our communities and try to talk about different housing solutions, frankly, for different populations. So, some questions in the chat. I'll just move through them quickly so we can get to all of them. And if you haven't asked your question yet, please feel free to put it in the chat. Hopefully, we'll have time to get to everybody's. So, are subfloors treated with cement, board? And what's the level of interior finishes completed in the factory versus on site? And I guess that probably depends, but
Yeah, so the OSB board that they use today uses marine resin glues, high pressure, so it rejects water, not like the old-fashioned particle board floors that if you had a leak in your washer machine, you're worried about what kind of damage is it going to do? You know, is the floor going to swell? We don't have that issue anymore. So it's marine resin glues that are used to construct that OSB board. And what was the second part of that question?
what's the level of interior finish that happens in the factory versus on site?
So by the code, manufactured homes have to leave the plant pretty well complete. The big thing that would be done in the field is finishing that marriage line. So where the two halves come together. If it's a single section home, it's going to be 100% complete. If it's a two-piece, they'll finish that marriage line, which you have there's a gap, you know, there's a vapor barrier that goes all the way around all your openings to eliminate air infiltration. You have to address with the flooring, and then the finishing the walls on both on the inside and also the outside. The factories have gotten smart on how they do this. You'll see that there will be a doorway entrance often on that marriage line, so that they're just standing a doorway up in there, and it doesn't require finishing sheetrock. There'll be some, but it's limited. So very little in the field. Now there are other things that have to be done in the field. You have to build your deck steps and porches. You have to connect your water, sewer, or electric, do your heat pump, and then however you're going to make that house touch the ground, whether it's a permanent block foundation or some other form of skirting. That all would be done in the field.
That's great. Keeping on the construction kind of theme, can metal roofs be used on those homes, on the manufactured
Yes,
homes?
they can, especially if it is an unhinged roof. So when you see that higher pitched roof, very difficult. We can't do metal on that because we actually lay that roof down. It has a hinge that runs all the way across the length of the home. And when it gets in the field, we use a little mini crane to raise that roof and bring down what they call a knee wall that nails in place. So you can see that with a metal roof, that just wouldn't work. So that would have to be done in the field if you really wanted metal. But otherwise, if it's a standard pitch roof, we can do metal at the factory and ship it that way.
Okay, great. And you talked about the pricing of cost efficiency between traditional multifamily and the modular multifamily. Does that hold up to that 85% figure you said for multifamily? Do you know?
I won't have figures on that because that's
Okay.
going to be project specific.
Okay. Hmm.
A multi-box, multifamily I just don't have any data to be able to answer that question.
Okay, no problem. So can you talk a little bit about how the projects are financed by the homeowner? We talked a little bit about mortgages, if there's different mechanisms for mortgage financing for, manufactured modular tiny homes.
So yes, it is somewhat of a niche market, but the um, the Dodd-Frank legislation that passed in 2008 requires all the retailers to list lenders in their establishment
Mhm.
who are approved lenders, and let the consumer pick which lender they want to apply to. So they can pick them all or they can pick one. They can bring their own lender. Um, and so there is a difference between a home going on a leased lot situation, so in a community, versus on a fee simple lot. So fee simple, you're going to relinquish the title. That home's going to be classified as real estate, taxed as real property, and then sold in the future as real property. In a community situation, it still will be a title, so it will be financed on a little bit higher interest rate and typically shorter terms, probably 20 years. I do know some are going 25, but it's a riskier loan because there's no land there for that consumer. If something bad happens in life, they're more likely to walk away since they're not walking away from their piece of property. So with that, you will see a little bit higher interest rate. But otherwise, we're financing 30 years. We have great partnership with Virginia Housing. They love the product. They have programs just for manufactured homes. And they even have some grants available depending on the consumer where they can help with down payment assistance and also closing cost assistance. So those programs are out there and available for our consumers. I did hear that the interest rates dropped a little bit from this week, so we're down around 6.37%.
Great, wonderful. Thank you. And quickly, that appreciation chart that you showed over time, was that per unit or sales price per unit, the appreciation chart?
That is, so that's an appreciation of, yeah, that's a good question. So are they using existing resales or new homes only? And I don't know the answer. I can tell you it was funded by FHFA
Yeah.
and the Urban Land Institute is the one that published that report. So
Okay,
I
we
can
can look
follow
into
up.
that. Send that back out with the notes. Thank you. And then do any of your modular home projects face opposition from neighbors, concerned about driving down property values, the quintessential kind of NIMBY argument? Do you see that?
Very much so. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if it's a big project. We had one in Harrisonburg where they were going to do a big development in Bluestone. It's called Bluestone. And that was 60 some cross mods and then some multifamily as well, which was going to be site built. And the room was full of 200 people opposing it, and maybe two in support of it. And you heard all the things that you would expect, that they are fireboxes, they burn to the ground, that they don't hold up the value, that they will depreciate the neighboring value, and that they're not built well. And so yes, so we do hear that frequently, and if there's a variance that needs to take place, you'll have that same kind of opposition. So I had the same experience. I did a modular on property, and the neighbor wanted to buy my land because they said that my home was going to depreciate the value of their home. So wasn't a good welcoming feeling going into that new home with that neighbor. But
Yeah.
I think over time they saw that uh, we didn't we didn't adversely impact theirs, and we were good neighbors. So
That's great.
it's
Well,
an education. It's a
education,
education,
exactly.
a
An
concept.
education, yes. So with that, I know we're at time. I want to thank you, Randy, so much. Thank you, Hannah, for all the support. I know there are a couple questions we didn't get to. I'll ask those of Randy, and we'll send those back out in the notes with the recording and your slide presentation. So
Yeah,
grateful for have you. And please reach out to Randy if you have other questions. There's obviously a lot to learn, and it's continually evolving. So appreciate you being here.